now I'm very excited to move to our closing keynote. And this is where we really talk about walking the walk, which is what they do at McCarter in English. Their call to action is their social justice project, led by Michelle Movahed, Moy Ogilvie, and Simone Wilson-Brito. The project, established in 2020, works to dismantle structural racism and combat the impact of racial inequality in our communities. It encompasses McCarter English's long-standing, and I do mean long-standing, DEI work, rich tradition of public service, and enduring commitment to improving the lives of those that live in the communities in which they live and work. As I continue to say, great businesses make great communities, and here is a prime example from McCarter English. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much for that incredible introduction, Michelle. So I am Michelle Movahed. I am the pro bono partner at McCarter in English, and I do have the distinct pleasure and privilege of getting to co-chair the Social Justice Project with my two co-panelists.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Moy Ogilvie. I am the partner in charge of diversity and inclusion at McCarter, and I also am a co-chair of our Social Justice Project.
Good afternoon, everyone. Simone Wilson-Brito. I'm a partner in the real estate group, and I co-chair the real estate group, and I sit in the Newark office. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about McCarter in English. For those of you who don't know, it's a law firm. It was founded in 1845, which makes us one of the oldest firms in the country. The firm is headquartered in Newark, New Jersey, but we have 9 other offices throughout the Northeast. East Brunswick and Trenton, Boston, Hartford, Stamford, New York City, Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Washington, D.C. So we've got the Northeast pretty much covered. With 400 attorneys spread over the 10 offices, we are one of the largest firms in New Jersey. We're a full-service firm that offers innovative legal services in litigation matters, real estate, labor and employment, corporate, product, IP, and many other practice areas as well. However, what makes McCarter stand out, and why I'm speaking to you today, why we're all speaking to you today, is the firm's desire to work hard for those who are marginalized and disadvantaged by racism and prejudice. And the goal is to work as hard for those communities and those people as we do for our clients. McCarter's Social Justice Project was created in July of 2020 as a response to the injustices that we witnessed that summer. While sleeping in her home, Breonna Taylor was shot 8 times when her apartment was raided. Ahmaud Arbery was fatally shot while out running for no other reason than the fact that he was running and he was a Black male. And the nation watched as George Floyd took his last breath while a police officer's knee was on his neck. I can't breathe. Those are words that as a country we will never forget. And it was his last words, his dying words, but it also conveys a sentiment felt by so many Black and brown people in this country. The deaths that occurred were unfortunately not new, and for too many Americans, it has been the norm. And with all of us forced to stay home last year because of COVID-19, we became a captive audiences to these injustices within our communities. We saw that there were a lot of people who were outraged by the events of 2020. There were many people seeking answers and opportunity and wanted to seek opportunities for how they can help, how they can be a catalyst for change, how they can be different. And it is out of those actions and those sentiments that the Social Justice Project was born. The firm, as was mentioned in the introduction, has always been committed to public service and diversity, as evidenced by the award-winning pro bono program and our long-standing diversity and inclusion work and initiatives to create fairness and equality within the firm and within the communities that we live and work. However, the Social Justice Project is a more targeted and focused attempt to address and dismantle structural racism and systematic racism within our communities through internal programming and community service projects. At McCarter, we believe in the power of one. And what that is that one person can make a change. One person can take action and set something in motion that can have a lasting effect. And we wanted to use the firm's resources and talent in a targeted way to help us to combat the racial inequalities that we saw happening, and to give everyone, not just our attorneys, but staff included, an opportunity to be a force of change and to give a voice to those who have been silenced, overlooked, and forgotten. Moy, I'll turn it over to you to talk more about how the project was formed.
So yeah, we were appointed the co-chairs of the project, and we were given the charge to come up with something that would appeal to our attorneys and our staff. There was no doubt that everybody felt that we needed to do something. So Michelle, Simone, and I had to try and figure out what that should look like and what it could be. And we spent a lot of time figuring it out. And what we ultimately decided is we knew that we wanted to have some internal components that really targeted our employees, our attorneys, our staff, but then we wanted to have external components. So that might be in the form of new pro bono projects, new community service initiatives. And so we started brainstorming about the things that we could do. In doing it and brainstorming, we also realized that this was a huge undertaking. One of the things that we all and the management of McCarter knew was we did not want this to be a one-off. We didn't want this to be something we were doing, you know, in August or September, and then we were done. We wanted this to be long-term and long-lasting. We wanted it to be impactful. We wanted it to, you know, have an impact across our footprint, which, as Simone mentioned, is from Boston down to DC and really beyond. And so we wanted to do that in a way that that really met our efforts. And in that, we knew that we needed more involvement. So we created a task force to help us, the three co-chairs, execute, design, and come up with projects. So we have a task force, a social justice task force, that includes over 20 attorneys and staff from our 10 different offices. And as Simone mentioned, we're in 7 different states currently. We thought that was important because we wanted to make sure that just as we were doing work, impactful work in Newark, we'd be doing impactful work in Hartford and Wilmington, Delaware, and DC, et cetera. And we knew for that reason it was important to have our employees from those offices involved. And again, we knew that there was going to be a lot of moving parts. And so our task force has been instrumental in helping us execute the plan and get the program going. So really the program, we launched it in July of 2020, and we tried to figure out what would be the best way, the most impactful way to launch this. And what we ultimately decided was that we had to make this personal. And we decided that it was time for some of our attorneys to speak out and speak up. We realized that we all have a pattern of, particularly our Black attorneys, we talk to each other a lot. We vent to each other a lot about things that are going on in the world, challenges, et cetera. But, you know, we thought, you know, we have been part of this firm for so long, and maybe it's time for us to be sharing some of our experiences as Black attorneys, our experiences as just Black people in this country. And we know that sometimes it's one thing when you hear about something on TV or read about it, but when you're hearing people who you know as colleagues and friends, and you've known them for years and years and years, talk about it, it just has a different feel. So we figured out who was going to do it. Myself, Simone, and another one of our attorneys from our Boston office. The 3 of us decided we were willing to do this and I focus on this. And it wasn't an easy thing to do, because what it is truly being honest and sharing. And a lot of what we do, and I'm going to say a lot of what we do, particularly as Black professionals, is kind of keep it underneath, and we keep it safe, and we don't make ourselves vulnerable, and we don't share our fears or our weaknesses, because we just want to get our work done, and we want to, and we really don't want to put ourselves out there. So we agreed we would do this. We decided that the best way to go about it was to have an outside person help us moderate the discussion, because it was so close to home for us, and it was so personal, and we thought it would be more effective. So we brought in a consultant who is in the D&I space from Hartford, Connecticut, and she was phenomenal. We spoke with her before to prepare a few times and give her the idea of what we were trying to achieve and what we wanted to do, and she really just helped us bring it out. So what we decided is we were going to have 2 sessions. Our firm-wide, we're almost 700, so we knew we needed to have at least 2 different sessions. And then we also decided we'd be willing to make it available, the recording available for our employees who missed it. So we really had a session where Joelle started off and gave historical facts dealing with racism in our country, the hundreds and hundreds of years of history that we've had, and why it is that there are inequities that are very present and clear today and really are at the surface. And then she led us into a session where she led us through, the 3 of us, through different situations where we talk about our upbringing and our lives as attorneys, things we face, and then really the things we face as just Black people in America. The reality is, even though we're attorneys, when we go into a store, nobody knows we're an attorney, right? When we're in our neighborhoods, nobody knows that we're attorneys. It does not matter. You're still Black. You're a Black person, and you have experiences that are very similar to what people talk about on TV. And these are people of all different backgrounds, of all different, from all different areas in our country, of all different economic levels or whatever, and they're all facing a lot of the same issues. So if our firm could hear us talk about the things that we're facing, and we know that we are, even with all that we're faced, we're still privileged, right? We have resources, we have, we are very privileged, and we know that. And for our firm to hear us talk honestly, it was a really powerful thing. We had such positive feedback from those 2 sessions. And we heard from everyone in the firm. We heard from partners, we heard from staff, we heard from people saying, I didn't know this, or I did know this, and sharing their stories. And it was, it was so worth us doing it. It was, I will tell you, I can just say personally, for me, I don't put myself out there like that. And it was very stressful, and it was hard to do, but it was so worth it to see the feedback. And for us, it really set the tone for launching the Social Justice Project. And it was a really great way for us to kick it off. And it brought the firm together in a way that I think was really important at a time, especially when we were remote. So that is how we launched our internal education piece. We had decided as a task force that the internal education was very important. What we knew, even the 3 of us knew, is we always have so much to learn about our history, about the inequities, about the way there is systemic and structural consequences that present in all areas of our society. So we knew that internal education was really important, because our diversity and inclusion work that we do in our firm, a lot of what we do in our firm, is really dealing with how do we have a diverse workforce? How do we, make sure we're attracting the best and brightest attorneys and growing them, and the best and brightest on the staff side. But this is a different kind of education. This is like about learning about our history. A lot of us didn't learn this in school, right? Or you've learned it on your own. So we wanted to be able to bring in education for our staff. And then in some instances, we've opened up some of these events to our clients and our community contacts to attend as well. One of our first projects was to feature the movie John Lewis, Good Trouble. And we gave our employees and our client and outside contacts the opportunity to watch the video, the documentary about John Lewis for a week. And it was actually unknowingly, we didn't know this was going to happen, but it was right around the time of Congressman Lewis's passing. And then we followed that up with a panel, which was a panel entitled Barriers to Voting Rights. And we thought it was really important to not just show the movie, but follow up and talk about the current consequences. And one of my colleagues will speak a little bit more about that panel.
And I just wanted to jump in, Moy. Part of the work that we're doing, as Moy mentioned, has the educational component, because there's a lot of, if we want people to get involved in these projects or different things, they have to understand why. So when we had to kick off with the panel of the attorneys just talking about the experiences, is to say, look, we're not shielded by our law degree. We're not shielded by the fact that we worked for the oldest and largest firm. You know, there's things that just the fact that the color of our skin carry so many assumptions with us that we take with us. So in order to encourage people, to motivate people who aren't in your shoes, who haven't walked in your shoes or experienced the things that you have, there has to be that education component to help them to understand. And most people come with we all come with assumptions, but once you educate and offer a different point of view, that's what has been overwhelming for me, is the response. Once people realize that, wow, I've really thought about this the wrong way, or there's another way to think about it, then they're more likely to take on a service project or do a pro bono case, understanding the background as to why it's needed, because most people don't understand unless you're living the life. It's hard to really understand that there are systemic things in places that work against people. Sorry.
So I've just gotten a 3-minute warning. So I'll just, if I may, just very briefly add, I can't echo enough what Simone just said, what Moy's been saying. I think the internal and external pieces have to go hand in hand. I think otherwise the work that we're doing externally wouldn't be as intentional as it is. And I think the gift that Moy and Simone and Stisha gave to the firm of talking about their personal experiences has been a necessary foundation, an incredible, a gift, and incredibly helpful in making sure that everything we do externally is grounded in a justice mindset. And I think that's just been absolutely invaluable.
So yeah, and then again, for the internal education, briefly, we again have focused on barriers to voting rights. We had one of our partners do a seminar on his journey through civil rights trails in the South. And it was powerful and moving to hear his experience. And he has this amazing slideshow that he put together. And again, it was just a different way to share the history of this country and hear his perspectives. And
that was particularly powerful because that was from a white male that took the time out of his schedule to schedule this trip and to share it. And that really showed that this is really just not an issue for African Americans. Sometimes we're the ones that are always touting it, but he was a powerful ally. And the fact that it was sincere, he did it for his own education and his own purposes, and then shared it with his colleague in a heartfelt way, that added, so much to it. And yeah. I appreciated it, the legitimacy of it, the authenticity of it. And it really goes to allyship. I was listening to the conversation earlier of just having people stand up and say, you know what, this is not right. And this is what has happened. And it really adds greater, what's the word, but it just.
And I think it actually, in this situation, was even beyond allyship. It's really this point of, you can learn so much from so many different people, right? Like, I learned so much from listening to this white male partner in my firm, things that I did not know. So we have to be really open about who it is that you can learn from, right? I can absolutely learn from a person who actually grew up at the time period that I'm reading. I wasn't even born, and yes, he was right there. This was even more personal to him, and he can share information. And I think for our firm, it made us realize, like, again, you can learn from anybody. He has been doing this. This has been a project of his for years and years and years and years. This isn't something he just did because it's the thing of the the thing to do right now. He's been doing this on his own. And again, who can teach us and who can we learn from? We have to really broaden our perspectives on that. And so, yeah, that one was wonderful. And we also then recently just did a panel, a criminal justice panel. And the focus is the challenges that individuals face when they spend time in prison and then also re-enter. And, you know, there are so many obstacles and barriers. And we had a phenomenal panel, two of whom spent considerable time in prison and explained the impact of what that had on their lives, on their family lives. And to hear people talk directly about their experiences in a personal way. And it's very different than reading about it or watching a movie or what have you. And that we did recently, that was just in February, and it was so well received. And so those are just some examples of some of our internal education. We will in the spring be doing one on housing. There is a housing crisis in our country, and the eviction crisis that really is disproportionately impacting Black and Brown people, women, single mothers, and it's a crisis in our country. So we will be doing a panel on that in the next few months. But we also do want to talk about our external projects.
So I think we're actually out of time. So if I may, I'll just add, we are doing a ton of external work. It is very much informed by the incredibly important internal education we're doing. And there really is an opportunity for everybody to get involved in advancing racial equity. So, you know, this has been sort of how we built the project at McCarter, but ultimately, I think there's something that everybody can do to take the ball forward, frankly, and bring us towards a more just society.
Ladies, I can only say, wow. I am just so incredibly moved by what you have done at your firm. You know, I'm an attorney at heart. We were talking earlier today about, you know, the challenges in professional services, and I commend, when we talked about the power of the collective, and we talk about vocalizing, and when we talk about bringing to the table, and we talk about taking action, you are to be commended for this. And thank you for sharing your incredible gift with us today, because it's taking the ability to feel comfortable to take something so personal and bring it into your professional environment, and trust. I said when I introduced you, McCarter English is quite incredible law firm, and I mean that. We work with your partners, you know, all the time, and to hear the story from this perspective and bring the dimension only gives me yet even more respect for all of what you do, not just inside your firm, but for your communities. Thank you so much, ladies.